Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to first thank the IIC for the invitation. I would like to start by commenting or by telling you about to talk to you about what is happening in Mexico more precisely. And here we have several authorities responsible for the protection of copyrights. These governmental agencies have specific jurisdictions, so they can face this type of violations. Among which we have the General Attorney's Office of the Republic, which has at the same time, a specialized unit in crimes of copyright, and it guarantees the compliance of this through some sanctions. Also, we have the Federal Commission for the Protection Against Sanitary Risks in terms of beverages, medicines, and tobacco. And also, we have the Federal Police, which are the people supporting us to conduct the several raids which are conducted between the agencies responsible for the protection of copyright. We also have the customs office. With them, we're going to be coordinating and collaborating to make the inspection of containers of merchandises that could be violating some copyright. And finally, on behalf of the institution I represent, which is the Mexican, we have also the Mexican Institute of Industrial Property, and I would like to focus more on this. And I would like to tell you more about the MPI, which is an public agency created in 1993, besides having the jurisdiction for granting the industrial property part for inventions and distinctive, hallmarks, and among other figures. We also have other powers to conduct administrative formalities, and also to issue resolutions through which we can sanction those who are violating IP rights by some reason. And specifically, I would like to clarify that in Mexico, we are two institutions responsible for IP. The National Institute of Copyright, which is the one responsible for the granting of copyrights, and competition when these copyrights are being violated or affected, and which go against the assets rights of the owners. Since 1997, it's the IMPI, the institution responsible for it. That's why I'm at the head of the directorate of this unit, where we're going to conduct sanctions in administrative actions both for copyrights and also IP. We are not not so many directorates have these powers for the issuance of registries. Very few directorates have the power to do this. You have some in Mexico City. We have also some sister institutes like INDECOPI from Peru, in other Latin American countries. Also, the superintendents in Colombia. We also have an office in Paraguay, just to mention a few, where we are going to have these powers. As I said, these powers, as I said before, we are responsible for investigating behaviors that may be violating IP rights through administrative processes. We can require for information to third parties about the presumed infractor. So the trial-like procedure can get all of the evidence and all of the elements that will allow at some point to issue this resolution, where we can frame the violating behavior set forth by the legislation and by the federal law of copyrights. Is going to frame these behaviors in this field. Which actions do we take? Well, or in which way are we going to face this violation of IP rights? We have the powers to conduct visits and in some facilities. We also can seize merchandise, and we can also impose fines, and also we can close down establishments when the orders of the administrative authority is not being complied with, and also the suspension of the free circulation of foreign merchandise. And this we do this together with customs, as I said before. What is happening and what are we facing today? We have legislation in terms of the IP legislation, which is the one framing the powers to institute provisional measures of 94, and another law from 97 when these violating behaviors are established, and this gives the power to the IMPI to address the sector of trade activities now of the people who started working to conduct the amendments to our legislation in this topics. I think that they were not thinking that in 25 years later, this violation or breach of rights could exist that we may have on the internet. In my opinion, internet is the gate to a place to, the fact because we have a human right, this is an access to which we all have the right, and we have the right to this access. We can all go to our retail store, free is open, so going onto the internet, that's free. The entry is free. And what we find in this retail store, we are not going to bring all of our food or all of our purchases, assuming that we're going to go through the cashiers without paying. For me, this is a clear example that effectively we can go onto the internet, but let's not believe that everything that is on the internet is free and we can take it. Why? Because there are rights, and those rights, which are copyright, concern all the contents that can exist there of those who have evidently, besides it's the fact it's their job, they have the right to a remuneration and for the payments to be covered for the use, communication, and transmission of these contents. We are pioneering in Mexico about in relation to this type of violation, not only for copyright, but also we have a lot of cases where through portals or through pages on internet, products that are wearing hallmarks are sold, and these are forfeited products. And this goes against, this is causing a concern in all the sectors of the industry. And as the authorities, specifically the IMPI, is endeavoring to conduct legal re-engineering based on the legislation that we have today, so we can face these new cases of violation to copyright. These cases that I'm going to present to you are closed down cases, specifically that of VACA, which the Society of the Authors and Composers of Mexico, on behalf of the owners of some of the pieces that were being sold through this internet site. They contacted us and they asked us against the owner of the www.ba scoreK.com, the application of preventional measures in terms of blocking. This was a case where where this association sat with the IMPI to analyze and to materialize. And actually, we conducted our legal re-engineering, and what we determined was to order the blocking, and we informed the owner of the BKA owner, as well as to the internet services, all the ones which are in Mexico or are operating in Mexico, from the largest service providers to the mid-size and the small ones, to the smallest ones. And we asked them and we ordered them through this preventive measure the blocking of this site at www.bka.com, requesting them to establish in the access to this site that this page was blocked according to the IP and copyright legislation. The result, all except Mega Camley, they did not follow this measure. Therefore, the institute issued some fine orders, which were challenged at the appropriate courts, at the exception of Mega Cable, which is the only one which followed and complied with the rule. If you went on to the www.bka.com, Mega Cable had this warning, a notice, because we had ordered them to inform about this site on the internet. This case is already concluded, and no more than a month ago, we already received the confirmation of the IMPI resolution. In the end, when we terminated this procedure, the IMPI decided against the owner. And let me tell you that in both cases, we have two very young people which completely master technology. In the case of BKA, the user or the subscriber to this page, depending on the payments made to this individual, was the speed with which these people, these subscribers, these people could download faster content. And it has several sections, among which, a section of pornography, where and that's the way he was identifying them. Adults could have access to these, cattle, but not bovines, because they're, or like calves not, because they could not have access to this. In both cases, this one of BKA and the next one, we're speaking about two very young people who find in this way a business model, because as you know, it's not. It's not a good person, the one, making available, some content because they want us to have access to culture, to music. We have 2 or 3 films because of the Society of Musicians and Composers of Mexico decided to act. In here we have an interesting business model. They were receiving profits to make available, and also to have a bandwidth, a faster downloading of content, depending on the type of subscription or of the customer or client they have. It wasn't like, oh, poor people, they have no access to music or to culture because they cannot have entertainment. No, it's a business model. Today, this is a terminated trial, which was validated by collegiated or circuit courts, especially in Mexico, because in here we're speaking about our authorities, which are going to validate the orders issued by the institute. The second case is a similar one of My Music, www.mymusic.com. It's the same type of operation with content uploaded. Both people based in Mexico. And also the Society of Composers started this procedure, signaling the violating behaviors and asking for the imposition of measures to the owner of the site, as well as to internet services providers. And in this case, this is also a solved case, and the IMPA said that we did have violating behaviors established in the copyright legislation. But here we have something very interesting. One of the internet providers was not did not agree with the order and the fine for not blocking the site. And last year we received, and a sentence was issued by but Mexico Supreme Court of Justice, where the Supreme Court made an analysis that access to internet is a human right, but copyright is also a human right. So, in here, and the powers of the institute is acknowledged to order this type of measures, something that, in my perspective and my personal point of view, was something really good, because in some case they could have decided otherwise. But also what they said is that this blocking, first of all, the IMPI must order this to the owner of the site, and once the person is not complying with step two to internet providers to internet services provider, and it must be proportional. In the sentence they have said that in order to block the totality of this, they had to act or to start the procedure all of the owners of all the contents that had been violated in this content. We have had an amendment what was explained to us during events, of course, because this cost a lot of interests, and the Ministry President was invited to participate in different events where they said, well, we will need to see the proportionality of the rights that are supposedly being violated or breached through these pages, and the sentence establishes that we have to remove or to order the blocking of the content of the owners of the right, which are making effective this action. In this way, if the institute consider that the proportion, this is the totality, or perhaps 50% plus one, we can order perhaps all the blocking. Today we are having other matters which are being venting that I cannot share with you, that I cannot communicate. But following down this line of the Supreme Court, and in order to create positive background and for legislation, since the institute is responsible for monitoring and securing this right by the application of these measures and these matters of IP. I'm going back now, and I wanted to present in this way, because now that we can speak specifically about the balance between copyright and the right to information, these two rights cannot be mutually excluded. Likewise, both are human rights, and that's what I had told you about whilst in this sentence of the Supreme Court, it was decided that access to internet was a right. All copyright as well was a human right, so none can be above the other, and both of them are necessary. And also the protection of copyrights, the creations protected through copyrights, which protects the wealth and ownership right. The truth is that without a creator, the information would not be available. And in the sense, and considering this balance between both the rights, I think that we are working not only in Latin America. I haven't had the opportunity. I have had the opportunity to attend different summits and fora where these topics have been mentioned. And worldwide, we are working a lot to achieve this balance and to achieve the most optimal and just legislation. This is not about blocking access. In no way Mexican authority has aimed at this or has had this as a purpose. What is clear for us is that we have to protect IP rights, and today with these modalities we have to be more to have a more state-of-the-art approach. And finally, the king of the of the rainforest. Everything can be pirated in this world. Not everything is what it looks. This is a dog. You can find it on the internet. I downloaded it. I did not have to pay for any right, and it was not a lion. I actually asked for the permission of the owner to use this. And now the floor is open to your questions. Thank you very much.